Acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands upon which we each stand today, paying my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Personally paying my respect to the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, who are the traditional custodians where I am. I'd also like to extend my respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders that are present here today. So looks like we've got some people from Perth, Sydney, Adelaide, Newcastle, all over the place. Northern Beaches, oh, lucky you. So feel free to post questions as we go. Love a little bit of interaction. Feel free to slow me down, check in with everything, say hi to each other. Oh, look, we've got someone coming from Japan. How nice is that? I'm Michael. I'm a psychotherapist and I'm one of the coaches at Uprise. If anything that we talk about today strikes interest in you and you'd like to take it a little further, feel free to reach out, get in touch with me through Uprise. You can find my coaching profile online, or you can also just, give us a call, and, we'd all love to support you in any way. All right. So I'm going to actually start this off with the actual basics, what is actually happening in the body when we're experiencing stress. So the reason why I'm saying the lizard brain, these are really, these functions go back a long way on the evolutionary ladder. This is happening at the core part of the brain that already existed long before humans came along, even before mammals came along. So basically, hypothalamus picks up on a stress signal and excretes CRH. CRH is corticotropin releasing hormone. Now, the corticotropin releasing hormone alerts the anterior pituitary, which is connected to the hypothalamus, to secrete ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone. Now, once that is excreted and enters into the bloodstream, then the kidneys, the adrenals pick up on the fact that this hormone is in the bloodstream, and they start to activate. So they pump cortisol as well as, a number of different hormones, but we're going to focus on cortisol here today. It's the one that we sort of understand the most. But there are multiple hormones being excreted into the body in this moment, and chemicals. And so cortisol is a steroid hormone. When this happens and it enters into the body prepares for fight or flight, which I also like to sometimes call action alarm. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it's not always a bad thing, or it's not always, fear. Sometimes a little bit of stress in the body can be good, can activate us to get moving. There's a sweet spot. So, cortisol has multiple physiological effects on the body. Its primary function is to maintain homeostasis. Now, it does so by assisting metabolism of glucose through multiple processes. Basically, it's allowing us a greater source of energy, right? So if we're suddenly entering into fight or flight, we need to pump blood into our extremities so that we can, fight if we need to, do what we need to. We have greater awareness of certain things, certain things in our brain become more activated. So yeah, regulating glucose levels, which gives us more energy. Regulation of body pH by sodium ion preservation, and quickened potassium ion excretion. That part I don't understand a lot about. The hippocampus is another area of the brain that's affected. So the hippocampus is responsible for learning, memory, behavior regulation. It's one of the parts of the brain that get activated during those, when we need to do those types of things. Now, we question, or hypothesize maybe there is a protective purpose to this. That experience when you've had, a car accident or something really full on has happened and you don't really remember it. It's all kind of vague. So there's a question as if this is a protective response to avoid trauma or long-term memory of really tough experiences. So limiting the function of the hippocampus allows greater amount of blood to go to the other parts of the brain where we can process sensory information and problem-solving abilities. Now, this isn't like big, extended, long-term problem solving. This is more like immediate problem solving. It can even be things like, where are the exits? Where's a weapon? Let's go back to like the most basic functioning of, being a mammal or an early human. Cortisol also has an immune suppressing quality so that the body is able to divert energy to other symptoms that will enhance the fight or flight response. Cortisol also, okay, so there's basically a feedback loop that happens when cortisol is released that also, the hippocampus, which is basically our sort of, it's like a meter of everything in the body. It's always paying attention. You get a hug, the hippocampus is the one that sends hormones out to let the body know to secrete oxytocin. Basically everything connects back to here. The hippocampus and the pituitary gland connected to each other, and they're basically the ones that are kind of regulating all the hormonal activity in the body and basically letting us know how we should feel in any given moment. So ideally when cortisol reaches the hippocampus, it recognizes, oh, there's cortisol in the bloodstream. That means like we've activated the response already. Now we can stop releasing the adrenocorticotropic hormone into the body because we no longer need to respond to this threat. We're already in it. So that becomes, kind of like an on-off function, a feedback loop that helps us to not stay in that stress response. All sounding kind of clear. We're all on the page. The reason I'm getting into this ins and outs is because, I think it's important for us to acknowledge that we are a body. We're not just driving around in this meat suit. We actually are a body. And every experience that we have, every little bit of stress, every thought, every feeling, they have a physical quality to them too. There are electrical impulses happening within our body, and sometimes it's good to kind of make contact with that. So, the more we stress. Now, I just talked about a few of the functions of the stress hormone in the body, and now we're going to talk a little bit about what that means, or the negative effects that can potentially have, especially when we engage in periods of chronic stress, or some of us get addicted to stress. Sometimes it can be very, I know that I'm more likely to get something done. I'm more likely to produce my slides when I'm under pressure, and I know that it's the last couple days before the presentation or something like that, right? So it can be this thing that we can use to motivate us. Now, the more we engage with stress, chronic stress can cause damage to the hippocampus because of this on-off function. When we're impairing the ability of the hippocampus on a regular basis, then it can start to, I don't know if you want to call it atrophy. I know that's a term for a muscle, but it can start to just get used to not being as much in use. So how, when you're in a time of stress, it can be harder to connect with people. Like we said, the effect of memory, behavior regulation. So, shouting at our kids, all that kind of stuff, right? The moments that we're not proud of. where we have less capacity to regulate and have control over those aspects when the hippocampus is regularly being shut down. And over time, it can sort of lose ability to come online as easily. We've got a new person joining. Hello. During periods of chronic stress, the body, like we said, blood is being sent to the extremities, and so the body's immune system is shutting down. So during chronic stress, we become really susceptible to pathogens, and we become very vulnerable to illness. And there's also a hypothesis that basically over time, when we're constantly stressing, that the hypothalamus stops having the ability to do the on-off switch. This feedback loop that we were talking about, where the cortisol gets released into the body and the hypothalamus then registers that there is cortisol already in the body and we no longer need to continue to send a stress response, that feedback loop can sort of get out of whack, and it can be very easy for us to just stay in that stress mode. Outside of all the, that sort of scientific aspect, the nervous system gets used to doing a certain thing. That's what it all comes down to. So, we have certain pathways that we tread, and the water takes the easiest way to the ocean. So when we get used to acting in a certain way, when we let's say we're a hypervigilant person because we've been through a period of life where there was, where we had to constantly be vigilant, where there was a lot of stress around us, then, it can get stuck on autopilot. And so that's just what we're trying to be aware of. We're trying to be aware of it. We're trying to acknowledge it. Trying to get more familiar with communicating with our body, understanding what's going on in any given moment. And, a stressful situation doesn't have to mean that we are stressed. So how do we start to interact with the body to recognize what the body's going through when it is going through something like this? Pay attention, open up to communication. Now, if anybody's been to a talk with me before, you might recognize this slide. It's definitely one that I have used. I know everyone can read, but I'm going to read this out loud. Physical sensation is tied to state of mind. Stress, sadness, and anger can all manifest in the body. So when we're experiencing things like tension, muscle aches, tightness, sore neck, sore jaw, headaches, reflux, these can all be manifestations of our emotional experience. If we take a moment right now, just even a couple seconds, start to notice the tension in your body. Notice the shoulders first. Let them sink down and back. Take a deep breath and notice if there's any tightness in your chest, the stomach, are there butterflies, knots in the stomach? Just breathing into these areas and not forcing anything. Allowing the legs to sink into the chair, the feet stick out in front of you. Face, your forehead, jaw. How does that feel? That took us about 30 seconds. That was a very short little check-in. We are acknowledging that stress has a physical quality to it. It is actually existing in your body. It's not just an idea. Yeah, the face. right? The jaw, the nose, the cheeks, even behind the eyes. Like sometimes when you're like, oh wow, how do I have tension in my eyeballs? You know? So we ask ourselves, is it possible to be a little more in contact with my body? Is it possible for me to be a little more aware of what's going on day by day throughout my day? You know, when I slow down and stop to eat lunch, can I just take a moment, 30 seconds at my desk to make contact with my body, ask myself where the tension is, and let it loose. You know, probably only a minute has gone by, but if we did the same thing again, probably all the areas will already have started to tense up. So, you know, we can do this as much as we want. You know, some people set a little alarm in the phone to 3 times a day or 5 times a day or 1 time a day to just say, hey, do a little check-in. And sometimes we have time to set aside 5 minutes or 10 minutes and do a guided meditation or do something like that. Sometimes we don't. All we have is that 30 seconds. All we have is 10 seconds. You know, even in 10 seconds, we can go, all right, whew, shoulders, legs, all right, face, okay. All right, now back to work. It's already something, right? We're just opening up to communicate, pay attention, you know, notice if those butterflies are in the stomach, notice if that, you know, when we were driving to work and we were in traffic and we got a little stressed out, notice if it's there in the body still and it's causing us to be really reactive and be on edge, and just not have the resilience for the surprises that come along throughout the day. So how do we build up resilience? Mindfulness is an aspect. I don't know if anyone here practices mindfulness already. You know, mindfulness, mindfulness is something we can literally do anywhere, anytime. It's not like we need to be in a dark room lighting incense, something like that. Mindfulness is just being here now. It's taking a moment to give the nervous system a break from the worries about the future or, you know, regret of the past or any of those things, and just be here. Looking out the window and really taking in the scenery, enjoying, you know, the changing of the seasons. When we go for our walk in our neighborhood, when we take the dog for a walk, when we go and walk around the block, are we noticing people's gardens and the new flowers that are blooming and the birds that are flying by and the changing of the color of the leaves that's happening right now? Are we really there? Or are we still caught up in the stressors of the day? Can these moments be more of a resource to us by starting to communicate with the body, noticing stress that's there, acknowledging the function that's taking place in the body, and starting to cultivate a bit of a different way? So living a more embodied life. How much are you in your body in this moment? You know, your body exists in this space, in this time, in this moment. And, you know, the more present we are, the more we're listening. For example, if uh, there starts to be a little bit of discomfort, you know, that feeling of like, maybe there's something I'm not comfortable with in this situation. The sooner we empty the bucket, the less likely we are to get to that point where we are overstressed and then we're shouting or, you know, crying or having whatever kind of tantrum we need to have in the moment, right? You know, or maybe not, maybe it never comes out. Maybe it's just always boiling there beneath the surface and our nervous system is always in that sort of state. But, you know, like we said, there are some consequences for that. So how can we empty the bucket more regularly? How can we start to acknowledge the things that we avoid and potentially maybe, you know, approach situations that are challenging before it really starts to become a big issue? Empty the bucket regularly. You know, if, for example, you're in a partnership that has a lot of turmoil, you know, that's regular. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with your partnership. It just means that maybe it would be good to empty the bucket more regularly. So at the end of the night, maybe we go, all right, what happened today? Let's break it down and just talk about a few things. When we get used to this, then we start being less triggered by it. We stop being as defensive and we start being more willing to hear it because it's just kind of a regular conversation that we're having day by day. So this naturally makes us more able to engage in that conversation without necessarily you know, waiting until 2 weeks go by and we're just like, you know, at the end of it, we're super stressed out and it all comes out in a way that we really don't want it to come out. So being more present in everyday life, acknowledging the things that are coming up for you, acknowledging what's going on in the body, immersing more deeply in the here and now by bringing yourself into the present moment more often. You know, for some people, listening to music is what helps bring them into the present. For some people, it's walking in nature, novelty. You know, nature is always novel. Every week, there's something new about our surroundings, right? The changing of the seasons, what's going on. And kids, you know, if we have kids, kids are like always in the here and now. And that can be frustrating sometimes. Sometimes we want them to be able to think ahead. We want them to be able to see the bigger picture. But hey, sometimes, you know, it can be very therapeutic to get on their level. Let them pull you into the moment, into the present. So, you know, there are a lot of different types of practice that are possible for basically building this resilience. Any moment that we take to connect with the present is a soothing balm for the nervous system. Any moment at all. You know, Sarah's saying here that a lot of long-term illnesses are associated with long-term stress. Yeah, you know, there is an element where our, you know, there have been a lot of research done that make connections between these things. So it might seem, I get a lot of people that say to me, you know, like I just have a hard time with mindfulness or with meditation or something. It just feels a bit pointless. You know, and that's one of these things where it's actually, you have to practice these things in the moment when you don't need it. Then it'll be accessible and available to you in the moment when you're feeling really stressed. And we're not monks living in a monastery. It doesn't have to be this big thing. You don't need to set aside half an hour in the morning. It's lovely if you can, but it can also be, you know, I do a lot of 3-minute meditations. I use Insight Timer. It's an app that has a lot of free meditations on it. And I go into Discover, scroll down a little bit, and there's all by time. You can choose 5 minutes. There's hundreds of meditations that are under 5 minutes. In between clients, you know, right before doing a talk like this, I can put on a 3-minute meditation, just something to pull me into the present. So let's do something like that together here and now. How does that sound? Does anyone have any kind of questions about this before we just do a little kind of mini meditation to wind down? All right. So remembering that we are a body. We're not just in a body. We are a body. Maybe if you need to stretch or just do what you need to do to settle into your body, let gravity take over. In this moment, you don't need to fight against gravity. Let it represent all those invisible battles we're fighting throughout every day. Some of them that maybe we don't need to fight. In this moment, just let gravity win. Let yourself sink deeper into the chair. Start to notice your breath. Not changing it or forcing it, just notice the feeling of it entering your nostrils, if it tickles the nostrils on the way in. The feeling of your chest expanding and contracting, your shoulders rising and falling. Hold that for a moment. Noticing the shoulders rising and falling with each breath. And then allow your awareness to drop all the way down into your abdomen. Breathe deep into the abdomen and just allow it to swell. See if you can follow. And notice a little deeper, maybe the digestive system. There's a lot of emotional centers here, like we said before, knots in the stomach, butterflies in the stomach. These things are not for no reason. There's a lot of nerve endings in this area. Just opening up that communication, listening to your body. Kidneys, where we produce the stress hormone. How do we let the body know that we're safe? The heart and lungs pumping oxygen around your body. Just noticing the miracle of life taking place inside of you. Pumping that blood all the way into the tips of your fingers. Focusing on your hands, maybe even rubbing the palms of the hands just ever so gently against the tops of the thighs. Just noticing the sensation. Focus on the sensation and then let your hands fall still in your lap. Continue to focus on the sensation. Just noticing if there's any feeling there that you can hold on to, a warmth. And just sticking with that, there might be thoughts and feelings coming and going. That's completely normal. We can't just shut our brains off like that. Let those thoughts and feelings come and go. Guide your attention where you want it to go. Back into your body, into your hands. Allow that electricity to start to spread up the wrists and the forearms, up the elbows and the shoulders, up the spine, into the scalp. Paying attention relieves tension. Forehead, ears, temples, behind the eyes, jaw, even the tongue and the throat. Connecting to the body connects us to the present. Listening, tuning into your environment, connecting to your senses. Pour yourself into this moment. Open your eyes, take in your surroundings, but can you be here like you're here for the first time? Noticing colors and textures, not just tables and chairs. Immersing yourself more deeply in this moment or any moment, you feel a little more grounded as you step out into the rest of your day. If you want to learn more about mindfulness or stress relief, there are some great modules on the Uprise app. Check them out. Coaching is a free resource. We're here for you. We want to support you. You don't have to be in a period of crisis to access a coaching session. We would love to support you in any way you can. And so thanks everyone for taking the time today to, make yourself and the world a better place. And please share some feedback. Actually, I think maybe Teresa's computer got cut off, so I don't know if I actually have a feedback link, but maybe it'll be sent to you by email, whoever signed up today. There it is. Feedback link is there. Thanks everyone for joining. I really appreciate it. And, see you next time. I've actually got another one coming up very soon on getting in touch with your values, maintaining the habit of doing mindfulness. So tomorrow, I would say, one thing has been setting a little bit of an alarm in the phone that just goes off every couple hours to remind me to just check in with my body, to check in with myself. Sometimes it's also planning ahead and putting things in a schedule, make it as important as your meetings, your regular meetings that you go through, all that stuff. Put it in your schedule. It's there. This is something that I'm going to do. This is going to be my moment for meditation, and hope for the best. I appreciate everyone. Thanks. Have a good one.